Welcome to the start of a brand new tutorial series, and in this tutorial series we're covering how to make a scrolling beat 'em up game in Scratch. And here's the preview of the game. So that's what you're going to end up with once you're done creating and following this tutorial series. So let's get started. So to get started, you're going to open up a brand new blank Scratch project, and what we're starting with is getting rid of the cat sprite. And what we're going to do is upload a brand new sprite, and you're going to find this sprite in the description. It's called mini boxing, and you can use the mini boxing. This one is the red one or the blue one, so you just choose what color you want your player to be. And we're just going to select let's select the idle. Just select this one right here, and we're going to rename this to player. So it's very important that you choose this exact sprite because we're going to have the animations lined up in a specific way. So let's go to our costume, and let's go to upload costume, and you're going to select the first one. And here's just a normal computer trick. So after you select the second one actually, and then you'll hold the shift key and select the bottom one, or you can just upload them all individually, but they have to be in order. So that's the idle. So from 1 to 10 we have our idle animations, and then we're going to upload the costume and go to the walk, and then select this, and then select to the bottom, and we'll have our walking animation. So that's it. We have to have 20 costumes to get started with the animations. So now we're going to go to our code, and we're going to go to events and say when flag is clicked, then we're going to forever and go to sensing and bring out two not if statements but keys, and then go to the control and bring two if statements, and then put the keys in here. And we're going to use the A and D keys. You can also use the arrow keys if you'd like, but for this tutorial just use the A and D. And we're going to say or create a brand new variable. So let's delete this one, and the variable is going to be for this sprite only, and it's going to be called X. And then we're going to create another one for this sprite only, and it's going to be called Y. And then we're going to create two more variables, and this one is going to be called cam X and cam Y. So this is for the scrolling aspect of the game, and we want to be able to scroll through the level that we create. And the size for this player is a bit too big, so let's change this to 50. And yeah, that's perfect for the game. And we can hide all these variables since you don't need to show them on the screen. So now we also want to create or let's not create the boundaries first, let's just change the X. So we're going to change the X by -5 when we're A to move left, and then we'll change the X by 5 when we're moving D, which is right. So actually let me show the X and cam X. Okay, let me just reshow the variables, and we'll notice when you click on the buttons, we see that they increase super quickly. So let's go to events and use a wait, and we want to say wait 0.05 seconds. So let's just say 0.05, duplicate and duplicate. So now if we click on this again, Oh, and then we also want to go to variables and set x to 0. So let's go to events and create a brand new flag which sets x to 0. So now we'll notice that we don't move as fast as we did before, but instead we have a rather more controlled. But you don't, another thing we want is you don't want to be able to just move forever. So what we're going to do is stop this, and we're going to set limits. So for the a, we're going to say if, and we put this in the change x, and take the weight outside it, and then we'll put another if here and take the weight outside it. So the condition here is going to be go to your operators and bring a greater than operator and a less than operator, and we'll go into variables and bring in to the x variable, and we're going to say if x is greater than negative 587, and if it's less than 552. So what will end up happening here is we won't be able to pass this specific what is it called, this specific limit. So we won't be able to move past this, but then on the right we'll be able to continue moving. So we can't notice that our player is actually moving. This is because we aren't animating and we don't have a scrolling background. So let's start with the animation first. So when we're animating our character, we're going to want to scroll through the different animation states so that it looks like he's actually walking. So in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're first on a walking animation, and then we just increment the animations. So for that, we're going to go to the if else statement and put each of them under the wait block. And then we're going to go to operators and bring in the equal operator in both. So go to looks and bring out the costume number, and then if we go to the costume, we need to just remember that from 11 to 20, that's when we're walking. So we're going to say if costume number equals to 11, then we're going to switch the costume to walk 00, or actually not 00 but 009. So we want to, because when we're pressing on the A, we're going to be moving backwards. So if costume equals to 11, then we switch the costume to 009, and then what we're going to do is switch the costume to, and then go to operators and select the minus operator, and go to looks, put the costume number and say -1, and then go to the operators and get the plus operator. And what you can do is just duplicate this and duplicate this, and then just remove this and change it to plus, and remove this minus. So instead here, so on the A key, we're moving backwards, so we want to have the animation playing backwards. That's why we're going minus. And here the last walking animation is 20, so we say if the costume number equals to 20, then we set it to the original walk animation and then just add by 1. So in order to make this work, you have to start at 11, and we'll click play, and we'll notice that now we're able to walk. We're able to walk backwards and forwards if you press on their corresponding key. So that's that's not the last thing we need. We need one more thing in our code, and it's going to be setting the cam X and the cam Y, and we'll just put this under here, and we're going to say set cam X to X, the X position of our player, and then we set cam Y. Okay, we already have a cam here, we set cam y to y plus 84. And the reason we're saying plus 84 is because the background that I've chosen for the tutorial is going to just have a certain offset that we'll need for the y. So you'll see this later. I'll demonstrate it very soon. That's the same reason why we have these two conditions. That's the maximum points that you can move in this background that I've chosen. So now we have to create another code in order to actually communicate the position to the other sprites. So let's move this here, and we're going to go to my blocks, and we're going to say make a block, and we'll call this block position, and run without screen refresh, and click OK. And then we're going to put position right under here, and now that we've done that, we just need to define position. So we'll go to looks, and we'll set the size. So set size 2, and then we'll bring in the size variable, and we'll go to operators and select the multiplication operator and say multiply by 4. Duplicate this, and then for this one we divide by 4. So just add these together and put them here, and then you want the motion, and you want it to go to and then go to operators and select minus, and then select minus as well here. So what we're going to do is say x minus cam x here and here, and then we're going to say y minus cam y in the y position. And if we see here, oh, I have a problem. So this wasn't supposed to be y, it's actually cam y. That was a mistake. And yeah, okay, that's perfect. Now we can notice that we're able to move around properly. And then another thing I'd say is let's set y to 0 as well. Okay, now click flag, and now we're able to move around. Now what we'll notice is our character is now in the middle central position. I don't think it was there. Yeah, it wasn't there before, and this is because of this go to sprite, not go to sprite, but go to block. And now we're going to do one more thing, which it won't affect our current player, but it will affect the other enemies and the background in the game. And it's getting a if-else statement. And for this, we're going to basically get in operators, we're going to get the and then we're going to get two equals to operators. So bring the first one here and the second one here, and we're going to say the round, bring the round here and the round here as well, and then bring the round here and here, basically in all the blocks. And what we're going to say is we go to motion and bring the x position here. So we say if round x position and round y position equals 2, we can just duplicate this and bring this here, round x and round y. And if that's the case, then we're going to show and else hide. And what this basically does is we're looking to see if this condition is met, basically meaning if we're inside the view of the camera, so cam x and cam y, then we're able to show it, and if we're not, then we're going to hide the character. And this is going to be particularly useful for the enemies. So what I'm going to do next is let's set the starting position for our character, or we can set it to 300, negative 367, y can be 0. And then one more thing we need to do is go to variables and set cam x to x. And if we click the flag and we notice, okay, we can move back, but then at one point we're not able to move back anymore because the CamX just, you know, doesn't work. So now what we want to do is go to our backdrops, and we're going to fill, or not fill, but select this box, not blocks, box, and make brightness 0, and simply just cover it up. So we want the backdrop to be black. And after we've done that, we're going to create the background for our player because he couldn't move around. So let's upload a sprite, and the sprite that we're going to use is the free pixel art street 2D backgrounds, and these can also be found in the description. For now, we're just going to use the city one. You can choose the bright or pale option. I find this pale to look better. And what we'll notice is we want this to be as big as possible, but we can only set it to 150. But for now that doesn't necessarily matter. We'll be able to fix that, and just set the Y to 70. And now before we write any code for this, we need to go to our costume and create a few extra costumes. So the first thing is we want to not create a costume, but let me paint one, and we're going to call this one dummy. So this is just a dummy costume. The next one being fill, so we just paint, convert this to bitmap, and then just fill up the whole screen, and we'll just call this one fill. And then the final one, if we paint the final one, we just get this circle and then just zoom in a bit and just make a tiny little dot here. And it doesn't have to be symmetrical by any means, it just has to be small, as small as possible. And now that we have these three, or let's call this size dummy. And then now we can go to our code and write code for our background. So the first thing that we need to do is say when I receive level 1, we want to switch the costume to, and make sure we select city 1. So for each level we're going to use different cities. And then we want to go to motion and set the Y to 70. Now let's click this, and next we want to go to our player and then just drag in the position, drag in this, and yeah, I think that's it. And we'll just drag this here and this here. So the when level 1 is selected is fine, and then we'll change this to when I receive, when flag is clicked. When flag is clicked, we set X to 0, and then we're going to broadcast level 1. We're gonna call this background, and we'll set don't set CamX to X, we don't need this, and then just have it go to the back layer. And we also want to call position forever, so we say forever my block's position. And this X is also unique to the what can I say, the player, or no, to the background. So if we notice here and we click here, this is the background X, so it created it for its own sprite. And what we want to do is, we won't need this if statement, we can just remove it, but instead we're going to say set and then we're going to create a brand new variable, and we're going to call this variable costume, and will just be for this sprite only. So let's say set costume, and then go to looks and say costume number. And after that we're going to switch the costume to dummy, and then set the size times 4, and then switch back the costume to size dummy. So yeah, the size dummy, and then we're going to set the size to 250, and then after that we switch the costume back to the variable costume, and then we're going to set go to motion and set X to X minus cam X, and now we don't need the rest of this, and then just duplicate this, bring it under, remove the set X, and now if we click on the flag, we'll notice that we have a moving background. So that's the code for this. So now it's a bit glitchy, but let me explain how this code works. So what we're doing is we're first setting the costume to costume number. So the current costume would be costume number that we're currently on, and it's city 1. So we're setting that to the costume in this variable, and then we switch it to dummy. And when we're the dummy, we're able to multiply the size by 4, and then we switch the costume to size dummy, which just allows the size to be multiplied, and then we switch it back to the original costume, because if we don't have the size dummy, we won't be able to have it as 250. And then you switch the costume back to the original costume, set the X to what it's supposed to be, X minus cam X, which is the position that the background should be, and then we switch it back to costume back to costume. I don't think this part is needed. Let me see if it still works. Yes, it works. So now what we have to do is go to our player, and there's a few things missing. So the first one being, after we created the position, we have another thing that we need to do, but I believe this is glitchy. So let's see if we walk forward, and if we walk backwards, it's not changing the X properly. And the problem which we have is this set cam X and all that should be under both of the if statements, not just D. So if we now reset this, we'll be able to move backwards and forward. And what we'll notice is once we reach the border, we stopped. That's because of the the borders or limitations we set previously. So if you have a different background in your game, then of course you'd want to set these two numbers to different values. So now we have to work on the animation. We can see that once we stop walking, we just get stuck in this weird position. So what we're going to do is create an idle animation state. So we're going to go to my blocks and create a brand new definition, or not definition but block, and we'll call this animation states run without screen refresh. And then we're going to say define this, and we're just going to say forever where's the forever loop? Forever. And then we're going to look at two things. The first one being if we need an if else statement. We say if else, then we say in operators we'll say if key A is pressed or key D. Now if A or D is pressed, then we're going to set a brand new variable, and this variable is just going to be called animation state. You can set it for all sprites and just call this animation state. And then we're going to set animation state to walking. And then we'll say if, so let's grab an if statement, and we'll say if, and then go to operators and say or, get a greater than and a less than block, and go to costume number. So what we're doing right now is we're saying if the costume number is greater than 20 or less than 11, then we'll switch the costume to the first walking animation. And what we're doing here, okay, not idle but walking. So what we're doing here is we're saying if we're not currently in the walking animations, like then we want to set it to a walking animation. And what we'll actually want to do is what is actually something good for the future of the tutorial, is we want to say if, and then just duplicate this. And the reason we're doing this is because eventually we're going to have more keys and we'll just add this to this list. But for now, we just look if A or D is pressed, then we will do this. Now the next thing we'll see is else. If we're not pressing any key, then we're going to set the animation state to idle. So we just say IDLE, and we'll go to control and say if we say if costume number is greater, if costume number, so let's say if it's greater than 10, but let's put the costume number in first. So if costume number is greater than 10, then we'll switch the costume to the first, oh my goodness, the first idle. So now what we'll notice is if we don't press anything, oh, at first I didn't actually put the animation states. Anyway, so we'll say when flag is clicked. So let me say when flag is clicked, we want to put the animation states. We also want to show, and then we'll make it go to the front of the layer, or we just put this here instead. So now if we click on the flag, we'll notice let's go to edit this and run without screen. Okay, yeah, that's what I did wrong. So you want to edit this and to run with screen refresh. So don't take this, it messes up the game. So now if we walk, and if we stop walking, we'll go into the beginning of the idle state. And now the last thing we need to do is just animate or create this idle state. So let's say when flag is clicked, we forever say if animation state equals to idle, then we're going to wait 0.1 seconds, and then we want to look if it still equals to idle. That's very important. We still need to look if it equals to idle after this time has passed. Then we grab an if else statement and say let's go to operators, equals to operator 10, duplicate, and we'll put this here. So we say if costume equals to 10, and then we can just duplicate this, or the plus one. So we can just put this here and put this here. So if costume equals to 10, we start over, and if not, we just add. So now you would notice that the animation works. If you walk, you know what I'm saying. If we go back, so I would set the cam position to -357 instead, because that's where we have no black. So let's set this to -357 so that the player doesn't see black, and if they do decide to walk to the back, they'll see the end of the line, and now we can walk forward and walk back. So I'll say the last thing is let's just hide all of this to the background and hide the costume. So yeah, that's really it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss the next video. See you in the next one. Bye.